Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call this meeting to order at 2:30, which will be a work session. The work session will be in reference to appeal number 1-2018, Ms. Kristie Atwood, an appeal matter concerning enforcement of the 2009 Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code. At this time, during this meeting, I would like to close it to members only due to the fact that we have a tremendous amount of information that we've had to go over the last week or so. And when we do have our meeting, I will open it up to both parties involved. So at this time, if we can, I'll just go around the room. We could just go around like this. We'll wait and see if Mr. McFadden comes and let him add his input at the time. So if there's no further ado, I believe we'll just go ahead. George, you want to lead this thing off?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, let me I just want to just highlight one thing that we are required. As a board, we have very limited ability, and that we are strictly here to see whether there are violations of the building code here in Warren County and also the state of Virginia. And also, we have to stay within the parameters of what the appeal is basically appealing. Some we would have some I think should be probably settled at another place at another time. But if we could try to stay focused on what we are responsible for, I think we can kind of eliminate a lot of it. Not to say anything about, I think both presentations were really well. And with this, I believe at this time that we can open the floor for this, open the table for members. George, you can go ahead, please.
All right. Of course, I want to make sure we're fair on everything we do, but doing the research, and if we just start with some of the things I found, is if I started in our code book at 119.5, code 119.5, it says the right of the appeal, filing of the appeal application. Said any person aggrieved by the local building department's application of the USBC or the refusal to grant modification to the provisions of the USBC may appeal to the LBBCA. The applicant shall submit in written request for appeal to the LBBCA within 30 calendar days of receipt of the decision being appealed. Let me go further. The application shall contain the name, address, owner of the building or structure, and in addition the name, address, person of filing the appeal when the applicant is not the owner. A copy of the building official's decision shall be submitted along with the application for the appeal and maintained as a part of the record. The application shall be marked by the LBBCA to indicate the date received. Failure to submit an application for appeal within the time limit established in this section shall constitute acceptance of a building decision. Now, I read that to say this, is that in the description of the decision being appealed, it states review of possible code violations and construction deficiencies. More importantly, home built does not match county approved plans. Review sent to the Buracker Construction LLC, says see attached. Now, what I read that is we're supposed to be appealing or deciding on an appeal on a decision that was made by the county, and I don't see that here. I don't see a specific decision. It just says review of possible code violations.
Right.
In my opinion, it's not our job to determine if there's possible code violations. We're there to decide on a code violation that's already been noted.
Right.
I do not see that. Now, if I go a little further and with this third-party inspection thing, and it is a very good report. I would never deny that. Is one of the things that just I see is some of these discrepancies that we're seeing here, to me, looks to be based off 109.5. There it is. Is 109.5 in our code book as the approved plans. And if you go back to the approved plans, you can read that. It says the approval of the construction documents shall be limited to only those items within the scope of the USBC. Either the word approved shall be stamped on the required set of approved construction documents, or an equivalent endorsement in writing shall be provided. And then it goes on to say one set of approved documents shall be retained. Now, what I think about that part of it is when our county takes in the approved plans and look, they are looking for whether or not that house meets the structural integrity, the safety part of it, and the welfare of the person it's being built for. And then to tie that back together is when the county comes out to do inspections, we all know that the code book is the minimum.
Very minimum.
It's always the minimum. And according to state guidelines, there's about 12 or 13 inspections that have to be, that are done. And these are the minimum. This is all that's required by the state to be done. It says, and what I did is I took the liberty, of course I've got a project going on in Clark County, and I printed a copy of that inspection card which lists all their inspections. This is Warren County's that lists all theirs, and this is Shenandoah County's that lists all of theirs. They're all almost exactly the same, but they read foundation footing, poured in place concrete walls, in-ground plumbing, slabs, foundation backfill, chimney, fireplace and hearths, rough-in plumbing, rough-in mechanical, rough-in electric, framing, insulation, and final inspection. This is all our county inspects. They don't inspect windows. They don't inspect siding.
What about the attic, ventilation from the bathroom into the attic?
Yes,
that
well,
won't be inspected?
Yes, it is, and that is indeed a code violation.
Oh, okay.
We're not saying that there's no code violations.
Okay, sorry.
We've indicated there are 5 for sure that has been noted. Five code violations, the ventilation being one of them.
Question, have those been addressed and corrected?
Those have not. They have not been corrected. They have been addressed. They have not been corrected. As far as I'm aware of, that they have not been corrected. So, looking at this whole thing is, I personally don't see an appeal here. I don't know what they're appealing. There's nothing in this description of appeal.
It says right there, code violations.
No, it says possible code violations.
Possible.
And none of them have been marked. We don't know which code violations it is. We can only decide on the ones that's noted, and there are none that's noted. Other than the 5 that we have, that we've already noted and everybody agrees upon.
As you know, I missed the last meeting, but I did watch the whole thing on video, which is really kind of good because you're more of an observer than you involved. And the appellant's lawyer started off very strongly about the first thing on their list that a building permit was awarded to somebody who didn't have a license. Now, is that a fact? I mean, you said that the building permits were awarded on or about July 23rd, but they didn't provide any documentary evidence. So what I want to know, is that actually a fact?
It could be a fact, but it's not in our wheelhouse.
It's not in our...
It's not in our scope.
That would be someone else's
That's somebody else's
Okay.
issue, that's not ours.
Okay, so it's not a code issue.
Now, that's what we're trying to do.
He alleged it was a code. He said that the code requires you to award it to only licensed contractors.
That's true.
Well,
But it's
Yeah.
not in our description.
but it's not in our responsibility to solve that issue, because what we're here to do is to find out what is the appeal about, what items are under this appeal, and then once we solve that, then we're going to be able to narrow it down to not all this paperwork, but the select parts of the appeal. Now,
I understood that at the end of the last meeting, the lawyer said that they would narrow that big long list they had down to about 60 items. You're not expecting to show up with the 60 items identified today.
Well,
Did you not understand that, or is that something I
he
misunderstood?
did.
Yeah, we did.
And that was passed out at that meeting. There were 60 items.
Okay, well, I got the whole package, and I'm not sure that 60 were specifically identified.
I think as far as the building permit, it was issued to a licensed contractor. So I think the application was illegal. The application was made out to an LLC corporation, not to a building or a contractor. So I think the actual building permit was in violation. I'm not sure. They say this is not part of our job, that's not a code violation, but to me it is a code violation. But I think that's sort of a moot point at this point, because the building permit was issued to a licensed contractor for Racker Construction. Now, should that application been withdrawn or refused? Maybe. But apparently the county has been aware of this situation, because they immediately issued the building permit and changed it from the application to the contract.
Okay, so if there was a violation initially, it was corrected early enough that it shouldn't have been material.
The building permit was issued to a licensed contractor. The application was false. The application was made out to an LLC corporation.
okay, Doug, you want to, George, you want to continue? Okay. Dan, you want to go ahead? We're going around the room, Mr. Pat.
Sure. Actually, building on what George just said, can I ask questions to individuals, or is this
To us, yeah, you can, but
How about
outside, no, it's closed right now.
Okay.
But you will be at the meeting.
All right. How about getting background information? Because what I'd like to see is if there is a written documentation beyond this that tells the inspectors what they're inspecting. Because the VUSBC, the administrative section, is not very specific. It is...
See that last line?
Exactly. And so that's what I am saying. Is there a written documentation for Warren County that the inspectors have in their possession when they do their inspections? That would, as far as, all these lists of many things that we're potentially going to be talking about, I'm just curious if there is guidance on that. And because there is nothing in the VUSBC that specifically says which items should.
The way I've been told is it's these items are the minimum,
Okay.
and then the rest of it's left up to the discrepancy of the building official.
Okay.
that can decide. And that's why what I did is I pulled
Right.
the two others to compare to make sure that they were all kind of coinciding, and they are. They all have about the same inspection process.
Okay. And as far as the technicalities, I mean, we could do technicalities of dates, we could do all kinds of things, but to get to the heart of the business, so we don't just meet again a month from now, I think we should go ahead, and I think we should look at this document, which Mr. Beam prepared as the document. Basis, we can't base it on a third-party individual. We have to, I mean, as you said at the beginning of the meeting, our purview is over whether or not the building official has followed the code or not.
Right.
We can't check if the third-party inspector has followed the code or not. That's not our job. So we have a document regarding this project with the code official's official opinion stated on all 125, is it?
Sorry, was there another copy of that?
This?
Yeah. I don't
You
think
should
I
have it
got
in your
that.
packet.
Well, I don't think so. I got the whole thing. This is what Paul said.
Is it
Oh,
possible?
is there another copy of that available?
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to take this and make a copy?
Thank you.
Because without that, I don't think we have a basis for reviewing any other document. I personally am prepared to go through all these items and just put a check mark next to the one that we feel is outside the code and move on.
Okay, sounds good to me.
I mean, that's one approach. So I would say the basis of our approval or disapproval of any one item is to use this document, which is the code official statement. If he states it is outside of the code, that's the first thing we have to determine. Is it or is it not? If it's outside the code, then we have no business getting involved. If it's inside the code, we do. And I think we have the right and ability to decide if a item stated by the code official is outside the code, but we feel it is, then we need to make that statement as well. So I don't feel just, so there's a little more involved.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a
Go ahead.
lot of stuff here. But that's my opinion of how we should pursue this.
Sounds good. Proceed.
Okay.
Me? I agree with you 100%. I was thinking exactly the same thing. I mean, they said we have 60 code violations you didn't, cite. And, it seemed, ought to be able to factually resolve that. Either they are or they aren't.
One thing George brought up before you arrived was that the building code and the electrical code are minimum standards. And with the requirements on the building permit there themselves, there are some items that don't have to be checked. And that's why one of the things I'm trying to do is just trying to keep our information in a little pool, so to speak, like what we're doing now. And I think once we get the copies, that we'll be able to go over these one by one and find out if something needs to be done on those.
These things you mentioned that don't need to be checked, are these code things or just stuff in the plans that aren't involved in the code?
Well, there's some items, like doors and windows and stuff like that,
right.
that are not included.
They're not in the code.
Right.
Yeah, fine.
I mean, in electrical code, for example, appliances, as long as they're on the proper rated circuit, it's not really our responsibility to make sure they work.
Yeah, or where they're located.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
An issue that came up in the meeting too was about verification against the approved plans. I don't know if any of you have gone back to the IRC, but the administrative section is very different than the VUSBC. In that document, it specifically states the plans become the document. that it actually is not the code, it's the plans. So with that reference, there's no doubt that the inspector has to be comparing to the plans.
Right.
And that's where I noted the VUSBC is very quiet on a lot of issues that the IRC is tremendously explicit on. And that's where we're here. I mean, I think there's, you know, so we talked the other day about the pitch. I was reading the IRC and said, oh, we should have done that. And then I said, hold it, we're under the VUSBC. I went back and compared, I was like, it's not that way.
No.
So, you know, I think if, anyway, that's what we're under the VUSBC.
Yes.
So it's not the explicit nature that's
Well,
like
I came across a code section 7110, 7090, section 113-3. States the minimal inspection as follows. Inspection of footings, excavation, reinforcement, material. Inspection of foundation system for compliance with code. Inspection of preparatory work prior to placement of concrete slabs. Inspection of structural members, fasteners, prior to concealment. Inspection of electrical, plumbing, materials, equipment, and system prior to concealment. Number 6 is inspection of energy conservation material prior to concealment. Number 7 is final inspection. So there's no mention of an inspection to see if the contractor is following the plans. Normally when a inspector visits a job, he's going there for one specific reason. That would be possibly one of these 7. You listed more than 7, but this says the minimal. This says the minimum.
And that is straight out of the VUSBC. That is out of the VUSBC.
No, I don't. I just looked in on the iPad for I don't remember what I looked up now about inspections, and this is what came up with that code number. It's Virginia code.
Well, that's pretty much shadowing.
Yeah,
pretty much
what
what's
we
on the
said,
building.
he's listing a few more.
Yeah. But these are the minimum from the USBC. This is.
Now, when I looked at one of Mr. Beam's forms on items that we just received, and when you look out in the building inspector's response, and it's basically responding with the civil matter between the owner and the contractor. Construction meets the 2009 Virginia Residential Building Code. And as I said in our last meeting, I believe a lot of this could have been taken well care of if the contractor and the owners had a little bit better relationship. Yeah. And I think that it's kind of hard for me as an electrician to look in a building code book because that's like oranges and apples. But I know enough about the electrical part, and you know, in electrical it's pretty much cut and dried, to whereas you have a whole lot more involved in building. But when I work,
should we just start at the top?
what's this?
Not to interrupt, but we have 35 minutes.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go over the whole thing, unless you all want to.
I think there's specific items here that's a possibility of code violation. That
I
would be
agree.
item number 10, and I don't think it's talking about hangers. I think it's talking about fasteners in the hanger. According to the picture that I saw, there's no hangers. There's no fasteners within that hanger. The joist is just sitting in the hanger, and there's no screws, there's no bolts or anything. So I think what number 11 is addressing is that there are no fasteners there, not the hangers itself. Yeah. And he's referring to the hangers meet the code. He's not saying, he's not addressing the hanger, the fasteners. Also, that's item 10, and item 11. Right there would be a reason to reject item 11, said work needs to be evaluated by the registered design personnel. That should have blew up a red flag right there and said, okay, you need an inspection or you need some qualification on that. That wasn't done. And if you move on to item 22, flashing between the vertical siding. I've never seen where the code did not require flashing where there's two vertical sidings meet, because water can run in between the joints. So there's always a requirement for flashing there. Excuse me if I'm getting nervous. But, anyway, I also didn't recognize any flashing over the windows and doors, which is also a requirement by the code. If you look at the pictures, there's just caulking over the framing, the casing, the trim. There's no turned over flashing that I can see by the pictures.
What item
I think we have to base our judgment on the evidence that was provided, and the inspection by the inspection by these people was part of the evidence that was provided. And I think we have to base our judgment on the evidence that was presented to us at the hearing. Now, the next item is number 22. Oh, I addressed that. That's the flashing. Number 23, guardrail posts. And if you go to number 23 on the inspector sheet.
Sorry, who's the author of this?
Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean.
Oh, okay, so this is basically the building inspector's rebuttal.
Or statements.
Okay.
The porch guardrail does not extend through the decking, and this should be a requirement. And Mr. Bean says this is a civil matter and owner and contractor. Only finishing nails were used, and they're decorative pieces. These posts that support that guardrail is not a decorative item. What he's talking about is these little X things that were supported. Those posts should have gone through the subfloor or the flooring, attached either to the beam, even by way of bolts, notched in, or whatever. They do not. They're sitting on top. So that is a safety issue, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a code violation. Because too many people can get over there and push the railing over. We've seen that happen from 2 stories up or more. I'm still nervous.
Just take the time.
Don't be nervous.
Just friend.
Cut her loose.
Item number 37 and 38, hangers for stair stringers. Stair stringers are steps. We'd rather not stairs. There's only 2 steps. They're already pulling loose. Now, I don't know if it's sitting on the ground. We can't determine that by the picture, but it looks like there's nothing under those stringers but dirt. That's got to have a slab or at least a pad to keep that from settling down. So that's another safety issue as far as I'm concerned. It should be a cover. Okay. Number 5. This is the last one that I feel is number 5. Oh, this is number 5 on mine. Number 73.
Yeah.
Number 73 is an access motor. That's got to be done. You cannot have a motor concealed where you cannot get to it. That is a code violation. That are the ones I'm concerned about right there.
Yeah, it says an access was found at the time of inspection.
Yeah.
What was that?
It says
Yes,
it was found. Was that built in the tile? Sometimes they build them in because I've done it myself.
Okay.
Is when you got a 12 by 12 or a 8 by 12 tile.
This was not brought out in the meeting. But I'm
Well,
going by the.
I know.
I'm going by
Well,
the
just looking at this,
presented. Yeah.
this sheet, it says one was found. I know a lot of times that's what we do. We just take one specific tile and then I do a color match caulk instead of grout. So then all you have to do is razor knife it and it falls. I put it on a magnet. Comes right up.
He does say in here it's one was found. My mistake.
Yeah.
We're just here discussing.
Right.
Gentlemen, one of the ones I remember that the lawyer was talking about was the problem, the way the chimney was insulated. Was that resolved? He said that he was thought the way the packing around the chimney made a big issue of it on the on the video, but what code that was, I don't know. But it seemed to, from what he described, it was a big fire hazard. Is that true?
Item 93 might be what you're referring to. what you're
That
referring
was,
to?
no, not enough space,
Not the space there.
an inch and a half instead of 2 inches.
And that was cited
So
by
what,
the
what,
code official?
what the plaintiff is asking for are these violations to be corrected.
Oh, okay.
That's what I read, and that's. Now, as far as the civil matters, that has to be decided somewhere else.
Yeah.
And, but this is what I think we need to look at right here.
Well, I'm in agreement with all your items. So,
Yeah.
right.
Can I interject one thing? On the window flashing, is sometimes you gotta be careful with the window flashing thing. And the only reason I'm saying that is because these one-piece vinyl windows come with the built-in J-channel. You can't put a head flashing on those because J-channel doesn't work. But what we have been doing to take that place is we now do the tape flashing around the window, which seals it to the wall. That's all I'm saying is, most of your doors, all your doors are still going to have the head flashing. It's going to be a requirement because there's no way to make that tape make that transition.
Well, I'm just saying from the pictures that I
But
saw.
but on a solid vinyl window, that's fully encased.
I
So
understand what you're saying.
I agree with you.
Can I do the same thing?
How about 118 on the bath fans? We're gonna I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Okay, I would like to do what Mr. Patrick just did and
Okay.
go through the items at the same time. I have a little bigger list than yours.
Okay.
I will do the same thing, and that way we can get it on the table. The diagonal bracing, item number 6. I believe with any manufacturer's truss package, it comes out with diagonal bracing.
Usually the engineer drawings will show it if it needs it.
Right, and I you know, again, doing forensics, I see it over and over and over again that it's not done, and it's critical. I've run
It's
into
the truss manufacturer's requirement.
right. So, if that is not there, it needs to be done. That's my opinion. So in this case, I don't, you know, I would disagree. I don't believe it's a civil.
You think it's a code violation?
I think it's a code because it's not per the manufacturer's provided drawings. So.
Why we need to see the manufacturer's drawings to determine, because I have gotten roof trusses that don't require it.
There you go. So
That's all.
we need to. So it set off a red flag for me because I see it regularly. So I'm going to say that needs further discussion or something to that effect. The 18, which was that one support post is cut too short for the beam. Shims were installed under the beam. Again, I concur with the inspector's opinion that the shims that were placed are not adequate. I mean, I would say that needs to be changed again.
That shrinkage would be so minute. You're talking about just the two before there,
Yes.
just sitting under that beam where the post was notched too deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, how much shrinkage are you gonna get?
I don't know that I'm so worried
Probably
about the
a
shrinkage. I'm
16th
worried about
of
them
an inch.
shrinking enough and then they fall out and now it's unsupported.
Well, that's a possibility, I guess, but you got weight on it.
I know. To me, it's such a small item that could be fixed without a lot of
That's true.
aggressive activity. I would just assume that's.
Well, I'm just going by the fact that sometimes we put beams on a wood block.
right.
So I'm just a little question whether that is actually a code violation. Maybe a building, something should be done.
Right. And again, it's in the structural area, so it's,
Okay. You're the engineer.
well,
It's your wheelhouse, man.
it's not.
Yeah.
And then 19, I know Mr. Beam spoke to that, and I don't know that I came away fully understanding. Is it? or
Well,
is
the
it
way
not?
the code reads is you only need one access into the attic.
Right.
That access that they were showing was from one area of the roof over
Yeah.
into the second area of the roof.
But is both areas accessible from the
Accessible
ground?
from the,
From the ground?
that's what I can't think.
You're
I don't
talking,
know.
you've got one going up to the main attic? Is there one going in the other attic?
I can't, I don't know.
Other than
I
the
think
one
that
that
one that goes
another
in,
would go through the.
that'll have to be a question we'll have to ask.
So that, I just put that out, I didn't understand fully enough to make a decision. And the next item, item 20, the ceiling joist is cut with no header. I mean, the picture was kind of weird because it was sitting in
Well,
insulation.
I think if it was cut, it couldn't be just dangling there, so it must be resting on a petition. Now, whether it needs a header to keep it from turning over.
Right. If it's dangling there, then clearly.
I don't think it could be dangling there. You'd be losing the ceiling.
I have seen some pretty crazy stuff.
I saw that, but
I've seen members that are like this, broken. You go, okay, well, there's a wall underneath. You have a wall underneath. And you go,
well, we can't tell. We don't know.
You can't tell. So I just want to get, again, I want to get
Okay.
an understanding of that one.
I'm with you. The more we find, the better.
On 21 and 22, you know, like we said here, to me, it's almost like I wish that there was a requirement for a manufacturer's installation sign-off.
Yeah.
You know, it was installed with that, but based on what we're seeing as far
I
as
think
what
you
the
have
code
to
covers,
list that out in the workmanship.
that's
Quality
right.
of work.
My personal opinion is that
Gotta
it would
be
be good.
quality.
Every house would just have a manufacturer's rep say.
Now, the plans themselves, they're part of the contract, because the contract calls for the plans. The contract calls for, a list of plans as part of the contract. So
But-
anything in that plan should be is part of the contract.
The plans,
Yeah, the contract that was written between Clear Record LLC and the plan. It lists the plans in that contract, so
The
that
plan number.
is part of the contract. Anything left out that's not done or not done properly is a breach of contract, not code violation.
That's not a code violation, I agree.
right. So again, that's one but I think it's outside our purview.
Yes.
Okay. You-
I have a question about that. At the first meeting, the lawyer asserted that the manufacturer's instructions became part of the code or something like that.
Became
And he made a big point about that.
Became part of.
And
Becomes-
Mr. Bean said, no, that's not a fact. But what I'm wondering, is that a fact?
It would become part of the contract, not part of the code.
Okay, all right.
And since it's not.
So
an
manufacturer's
inspectable item.
instructions are not part of the code.
Right.
Okay.
And interesting enough, if you go to the IRC, they do become.
Well, we're not going by that.
I understand. It was just interesting that the VOSBC actually
Yeah.
specifically left that out. And then the issue we talked 33, the head flashing. It would just be good for me to know, is it or is it not?
Was it taped?
Taped
That
or-
was my question.
Was it
is whether
properly
or not
done?
it
So
was taped.
I leave that
I
as
do agree.
where we just get info and it's done or it's not. Next two, Mr. Hatcher had already done. 56. The grading underneath the deck.
Yeah.
Is that not?
But you're talking about it doesn't drain
doesn't
6
drain.
feet, 10 feet, 6 inches, 7 feet.
Yeah.
But it's coming down sideways,
Okay.
coming down alongside the
The only
building.
other thing I noticed, it looked like it was backfilled with all gravel too. I noticed the backfill channel.
Yeah, it looked
around
rough,
that,
but the picture shows that the drain is coming down. Apparently the drain is sloping
It looked-
across the front of the house.
So you
under
call
the
it as an
porch.
alternate drainage
It's going
method.
off that way instead of this way.
That way.
Okay.
Well, now, would that would be a problem for getting water in the basement?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
If it drains, the code allows alternate. You can do a swale closer to the house
Yeah, you can.
that appropriately drains it, and cross pitch. But
Yeah, I think it's doing some sloping both ways. The majority of sloping coming down across the front of the house or side, whatever was whatever part of the house we're seeing, but you can definitely see that it's coming downhill out from under the porch. And it's probably sloping away from the house as well, so slightly anyway.
It just looks like crap.
Yeah, but
Well, again, it's quality of construction.
but I don't agree that it's a civil matter. I believe that it's a code issue. It either meets or doesn't meet the code, because the code talks about drainage and grading. So anyway, I'm going to keep that on my list.
Okay.
Let's see. On the item 59, do you know, did we, the openings in the basement, foundation wall, the door and windows have not been covered with stucco? With that, could you get a CO?
Not that code.
No, but I mean, could you get a final if you don't have your finishes covered?
Well, it's concrete, or I guess.
It's a cement board, so it is it's a
finish.
It's a finish. It's a rubber type finish.
So you're
If
thinking
you
this
look
is
at
more
it,
of a...
I think that's a cosmetic.
Was there a reason for leaving the contract?
I can't answer. That'll be a question then.
I just...
But still, I think that's an item between the contractor and the owner.
If it's...
Well, I think a lot of these things should have been corrected as they went along. I think that's been said. My feeling is when an owner writes a check, puts their name to it, hands it over to the contractor, they are agreeing with the work that has been accomplished to that point. The owner controls the purse, and the purse controls the construction. I'm sorry.
No, okay. Comment. And the same thing, the 67, roof flashing has been sealed with roof cement. Again, if it's not a code issue,
The drainage?
no, the roof flashing has been sealed with roof cement at the lower ends of the front dormers. Again, it's a...
But we can't tell whether it's flashing under that roof cement or not.
Right, so it's not in our purview, sorry. The tempering valve, I'm not familiar with that, maybe you're...
What number?
Number 76.
76.
A tempering valve was not
valve.
found for the master tub.
In the tub.
Is that a code?
Is that a requirement?
It is now.
So that should be addressed?
Well, it is in 12. I can't answer if it is in that.
Oh, because it was under 9?
It is under 9.
All tubs have to have a tempering valve?
No.
No. I can't, that'll have to be a question. I can't answer it on the, because I know in the 12, I'm pretty sure you gotta have a tempering valve, but in the 9, I don't remember that.
I haven't looked at that code over 20 years.
I don't believe in the 9 it was required.
Then jumping on to 82, electrical. There's an electrical for you.
Yeah, just an electrician.
Yeah, 82.
I read that, and
What number?
82.
Last one on that page.
Oh,
I don't...
I think that's true. It has to be on the board.
oh yeah, it can't be damaged by, if they would want to put plywood
It's
down,
just
that
running
would,
across the joint.
yeah.
It's not on the board.
No, normally we run it in behind a bracing to keep it out of the way if they ever want to put the floor on it. But if it's laid out there and you don't have the what do you call those strips?
The sleepers.
Yeah, then that's got to be moved.
So we would disagree. Okay. I'm just trying to zip through here. Let's see. Is there, again, a similar electrical issue, 97? The heat pump disconnects are located behind HC equipment. Access to disconnects is restricted. Is that a code violation?
What is this?
The heat pumps, there's a picture with he shows the heat pumps and the connectors are
breakers,
behind it.
Panel,
Is that a,
cut off.
I mean, it's 3 feet to a panel, right?
Here's the only thing I'm gonna tell you about that. if Bob McDonald passed it,
That's-
It's not in violation.
it's not in violation, because I'm gonna tell you, if it was,
He will.
he would not pass it.
Well, you can get to it.
Yeah.
It's just narrow.
It's just an inconvenience,
Yeah.
right, but
There's not a
but
code,
I'm gonna
there's
tell
not a
you,
code offset.
no, if he passed it, I'm 100% sure
I would agree
that
with that.
that it's
I would
right.
agree with that.
Yeah, I don't see, as long as it's accessible, you know, there's nothing in the code book that says other than it has to be accessible.
Okay. And then we get into 99. I'm baffled because we had the whole issue on the stairs. How is that not a code violation?
What number are we talking about now?
99, I'm saying.
Yeah.
How did that mean if it's,
I think that is too. It cannot be that much difference in 2 steps.
8.5 is exceeding 8.25, so.
And that's exceeding the maximum.
So to me, that,
It's a tripper.
and as far as all those next issues, you know, again, it's a garage, what's the word, connected to the rest of the house. So there has to be fire separation. So all those panels and all of it, plywood panel, plastic panel, all those access ports, the attic and the walls, I mean, that they should be rated doors and things. To me, all those things are pretty important. So the next 100, 101, and 102. 102 is that same issue we had before, but the attic pull-down stairs are missing fasteners. But they're in the attic, or it's in the garage, and it's not a fire-rated protection between it and the attic is contiguous with the rest of the house. And if you have a plastic panel going into a wall, that's an interior wall, I would think it has to be a fire-rated panel. So anyway, I think both of those should be 100, 101. And then 104.
I think it's blank there.
Is that, I don't know that it's, I don't know what to do with that.
That's not a code violation. No. You're not supposed to put, unless the truss has been designed to carry a load, you're not supposed to even have a floor on it.
Okay. So
To me, well, I don't know, if you put a floor on truss, it's not designed for it. But we don't know that truss is not designed for it.
we don't know.
We don't know.
Huh. I'm just going to put a question mark.
I can tell you what, if you load it down, you're gonna get this.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's it. Sorry. So that was.
Mr. McFadden,
I'm good.
you good? Mr. Hatcher?
At this point.
Mr. Cloud? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we have finished our work session. You all want to take a break before the meeting, or?
Yes, please.